Chromosomes. Little strands of nucleic acids and proteins are the fundamental genetic instructions that tell us who we are at birth. Most people are born with 46 chromosomes, but each year in the United States, about 6,000 people are born with an extra chromosome, making them a person with Down syndrome. If you've ever encountered someone with Down syndrome, you know that they are some of the kindest, most joyful people you will ever meet. They truly have something extra. My name is Lisa Nichols, and I have spent the last 24 years as both the CEO of Technology Partners and as the mother to Allie. Allie has something extra in every sense of the word. I have been blessed to be by her side as she impacts everyone she meets. Through these two important roles as CEO and mother to Allie, I have witnessed countless life lessons that have fundamentally changed the way I look at the world. While you may not have an extra chromosome, every leader has something extra that defines who you are. Join me as I explore the something extra in leaders from all walks of life and discover how that difference in each of them has made a difference in their companies, their families, their communities, and in themselves. If you like this episode today, please go to Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen and leave us a 5-star rating. I'm excited to have Paul Long and Brad Silverman on the show today. Paul is the president of Kappa Studios and Brad is the chief content officer. So Paul and Brad, welcome to the Something Extra show today. I'm so delighted that you guys have made the time to be on the show with me.
Thank you. Good to be with you.
Good to know you, Lisa.
Been looking forward to it. And we've already been talking about Jim. Jim, your ears are probably burning. But we have been just talking about Jim Bechtold and what an amazing human being he is. And he is the one that connected us and said that all of you guys need to know one another. And so I'm just so grateful to him in my own life. And I know you guys are as well.
Yep.
Yeah, we sure
So
are.
shout out to Jim, our CEO. He's our CEO, our Chief Encouragement Officer, and our CCO, right, Paul? Our Chief Connection Officer.
So he's got two wonderful titles.
He does. He does. Well, I can't wait to dig into all that you guys are doing. But before we do, I'd love to talk about how each of you grew up. Now, Paul, I know you grew up in California. Brad, did you grow up in California as well?
I did.
Okay. Very good. Now, so you guys are both in the movie business. And I would love to go back because I'm always interested. What did you do as children? Were you interested in this as children? Did you grow up around the business? Did you have family in the business? Can you tell me that story?
Yeah, we both.
Paul, I guess you can go first.
Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah. Well, I grew up in an entertainment family. It is true. My dad was a director. He started out in animation at Disney and worked before World War II. He was working in animation, working on all these old shows, all the old classic Disney animated projects. And he and our family, we were an entertainment family. That's why my dad loved the business and loved to talk about it. And he was, I've often said, he spent a lot of time teaching me directly and osmotically, about how stuff gets done, lenses, and just things that he just wanted to tell me. And he was a combat cameraman in the war. And so we just had this sort of culture of creative things and that sort of stuff. He later became a writer and director and spent the rest of his life doing that. And I grew up in that kind of world. My mother was one of the early broadcasting pioneers. She was a female radio producer back in the day in New York. I think it was WOR, and I forgot the other, and whatever, Artie Bulova, the watchmaker, had a radio station, and she was on that. And so she was very involved that way. So yes, they both had that kind of thing going on, and that was our culture. That's what every family has got a culture, and that was ours.
That is so cool. So did you have siblings, Paul, that ended up in the business as well?
No, I have one sister, and she's a homemaker, and she's done design work and stuff like that, but nothing like what we're doing.
I love it. Well, I've had so many friends that parents use the dinner table as somewhat of an MBA, right? Yeah, so I've got a dear friend, Cheryl Batchelder, that has been a multi-time CEO, and she always talks about her dad teaching her these things, around the dinner table. So, Brad, how about you? Did you grow up in the entertainment business as well?
Not really. My dad was a trumpet player, so maybe peripherally a little bit. There was sort of an entertainment thing in our family. I just, from an early age, I just like being on stage with a microphone. So
He does.
yeah, not much has changed a couple decades later, but so yeah, I just kind of gravitated toward comedy and sketch comedy and stand up comedy and just emceeing things. So that kind of my foray was really in the performance side of thing, and then as I kind of grew, maybe in college, I put a little comedy troupe together and just kind of, I'm pretty small in stature, so I was kind of bossing people around, and so it was just kind of, it wasn't like a bully because I was so small, but I just kept bossing people around and did no, go here. You're supposed to be over here to say that, and not knowing what I was doing. But then someone said, they said, well, Brad's the director, and I'm like, that's right, I'm the director.
That's right.
So that was 30 years ago, and just started directing things. So that kind of led to just some directing projects, and then when the Lord got a hold of my heart, the worlds kind of collided. So here we are.
Yeah, I love it. And I can't wait to talk about that piece. But Paul, I know for university, you went to Pepperdine.
Yeah.
What a beautiful university that is.
Yeah, it is a sort of storied university on the hill, and
Yes.
they have a lot of good stuff. I was in television and radio there. Dropped out of college. I was in school for architecture, and my parents were prancing around telling everyone that we have an architect in the family. And imagine their pride. Imagine how proud they were. Very excited about that. And then I told them I didn't think I could sit at a desk all day. But P.S. That's all I've done for like 30 years is sit at a desk. So I had no idea. But my dear father and mother, they said, "Well, what do you want to do? What do you know?" And I came home one day. I said, "I think I'd be a truck driver. I like to over the road," and had all these ideas. And my father said, "Well, great, keep looking, keep staying there. Go back to the library, look some more." Well, we ended up down at Pepperdine, and he was so great. He handled this thing. Looking back on it with such wisdom. My dad was unsaved. My mom was unsaved. My father came to faith on his deathbed. My mother at age 7. So it was just, but we lived a very secular life. But he just had wisdom that way. And I remember him driving me down to Pepperdine, where we're going to see. We're going to go there, and on the way back, and he goes, "Yeah, what do you think?" I said, "It seems good. I like it. It seems good." And he said, "Well, look, if it doesn't work, I'll just drop out again." And I'm like, "Yeah, good idea." I mean, it was just so crazy that the conversation was silly, but he was doing that for me. And looking back, he was just taking all the pressure away, saying, "Where do you want to go? What do you want to do?" I think that's what he wanted to do. So we went to Pepperdine, never looked back, and went through that program, and it worked out great. We were grateful to be there.
What great wisdom, right, Paul? I
Yeah.
mean, he kind of let you kind of come to your own conclusions about it, which I love. When I remember when our middle daughter was looking at colleges, we went and looked at Point Loma
Yes.
that sits up on the cliff.
Yeah, that's a good one up there.
And she deselected herself from that. She said, Mom, she goes, I just know I had this high ideophoria. And she goes, I just know I would just be looking out at the ocean and not necessarily thinking about studying. So she quickly, but that was just, what a beautiful, beautiful campus. And I love that you went to Pepperdine. So Brad, how about you? What's your education background?
Yeah, I've dropped out more than Paul has. So I just went to I went to Long Beach State. I was the opposite of your daughter. I was like looking for opportunity to be distracted and looking for opportunity to gaze over the nothingness or the somethingness. So yeah, I went to Long Beach State as an economics major, which is like me being an NBA player, probably more chance of being an NBA player. Um, yeah, it made no sense at the time, but so I went. I was actually a junior, and then just kind of paying my own way. And by then, and so I just thought, well, I lived in Los Angeles, and my heart was kind of to go into the film business. So I thought, well, let me just go start working, and so I did. I just started working as a comic and production assistant, which is kind of an entry level thing. And there was no mystery of Los Angeles or Hollywood to me. I'm calling my mom. "Hey, Mom, is my room still there?" And she's like, "Yeah." So I literally moved back home.
I'm coming.
I'm coming, and then you just nothing but foolish decisions, to be honest. Lisa, just foolish decision after foolish decision, immature decision after immature decision, that my kids now, like they're just like, it's just all God's grace that I'm even alive. Not to seem over dramatic, but I mean that all God's grace that I'm even alive, or that have any sense of anything to contribute to society. So education was not a big thing in my life, but I just thought I'm going to go just kind of work in the industry and kind of learn that way. And that's what I did.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh,
Well, yes, Paul.
I,
You
I
do you
have,
have a
yes,
question?
I do. I wanted to add something to my statement. I met my dear wife at Pepperdine University, and it was wonderful. She was the smartest girl in the school and the most beautiful girl in the school.
Wow.
Yes, and no one
There
was
you go.
no one was able to even walk up and talk to her. I was too dumb to know any better. So that is she, but she was one of those very imposing people that, and yeah. So I just wanted to share that. That's very important. But she was a
Probably the second best decision you've made in your
yeah.
life.
That's the word up here. Yeah, yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. That is awesome. Well, I'll have to tell you mine and Greg's story sometime. So we met when we were 3 and 5.
Oh
Oh,
my goodness.
But
wow.
yeah, we basically grew up together, but we're not cousins. That's what I always say. Oh, well, listen, Paul, you founded Kappa Studios
Yeah.
in 1985. It's a full service production, post production facility there in Burbank. But tell our listeners, what does Kappa stand for?
Oh, well, yeah. Kappa. I'm not a fraternity nut or anything. All the good names were taken when I was given a cease and desist order, and for a name that we had earlier, and it was a silly name that I had. I'm not even going to state it, but it did not make any sense. We actually, to our surprise, a cease and desist order. Do not use the name anymore. My dear wife calls up one day after we culled through ideas and names and all that, all the good technical names I felt were gone, and she said, "Why don't we just personalize it after our family?" So she's Karen, K-A. P was Patrick. We had one child at the time, and P-A was me, Paul. And since then, we've given it to our kids, Catherine, Paul, and Patrick. They got the K's and the A's and all that. But yeah, it started out that way, and we never looked back.
Oh, she is very smart.
Yeah,
Karen is very smart, right?
she is
Came up with the name of the studio. I absolutely love it. So tell me, Paul, what was your motivation? I think I know what your motivation was, but I don't want to put words in your mouth. What was your motivation for finding or being the founder of Kappa? What were you hoping to accomplish?
well, back in the day when we started the company, I lived for myself. I did not know God. We weren't saved, and we lived, um, you know, not very well. And I spent many years in the church hanging around. My wife and I went down on the field of Billy Graham crusade, and he had invited us to come down, and I said to her, "Would you like to go down the field?" And she's like, "Yeah." We just went down. We didn't go down to repent of our sin. We didn't go down because we were, just full of sorrow for what we wanted to live differently where we were in life. We just went down because I had never been on a baseball field, and so imagine my joy to be in a baseball field. And I went down there, yay! And the guy handed us a little thing. Here you go. Here's a paper. Thank you. We weren't plugged into a church or anything. So my wife loves to tell it. She wrote a book on this subject about our marital shenanigans and how God saved our marriage. And in there, she said we checked the box of faith, and we kept driving. So as we did that, it showed up in our marriage, the way I treated employees, the way I lived, just everything about it. The kids, we thought we were raising chia pets. We didn't have any anything pouring into them other than water. We didn't, it just wasn't. It was a wipeout, and so God had to really move us and change us, and He did. He broke us in a mighty way, but it started out that way, and we came out for just us version of reasoning, and I wanted to make money and do things, and those were my idols, and that's what I was doing, was worshiping money, and would you like me? I like you. Will you like me? Say you like me. Would that be okay? That's what I was focused on and interested in. So
Hmm.
today,
I think I remember reading somewhere, maybe it was an interview that you did or something, where you said that your goal was to be a millionaire by the time you were 30 or something like that, and that was kind of
yeah,
where you were headed, and money had become your idol. So, the scripture tells us that money is not the root of all evil, but the love of money is anything that we put above God, right?
yeah.
So I think that's what was happening there. But tell me just real quickly before we move into some other things, tell me a little bit about Kappa. So what is really your area of expertise back in the day? And then we'll talk about Kappa today, because Kappa today is different than Kappa 30 years ago. But what were the differentiators and strengths
Sure.
in your opinion, Paul?
Yeah, I mean, it really came because I was doing editing and I wanted to offer equipment and do that work together. It was a business move. And so I started renting equipment and built a rental business that was running pretty good. And, things were working in a good way. And so I kind of built up from there. And then from there, migrated into the services, which would be what I'll call in-facility services. But I started out, I'd bring editing equipment and set it up over at your house or Brad's, or, we'd set it up and operate it. And I was always hopeful. Could you hire me? Well, no, but I'll take the equipment. Okay, I'll take the year. So I did it that way, kind of potpourri style, whatever's there, mix and match. And it started out that way. Then I got into dubbing and just some other areas of that business. But where when we moved, it would have been 1989, 19, sort of, I guess, yeah, in 89, almost 90, we moved into a building that was a lot bigger, and I was able to offer more services, so expanded out. Now we're doing basically full service post production. So everything, we have an end-to-end value chain that's scalable. So that's what we have now, where we can go alongside. And now that we've pivoted our company, we've moved into doing only faith projects and family. That's just been a huge benefit, because it's just such joy. This is where joy lives. I'm telling you, this is good stuff. So we can serve the folks that have the heart, the will, and the wherewithal to do faith projects and speak. So that's our goal. Help them do that. And that's become just incredible. He and I often talk about how great it is. And I think we were kind of commiserating. I think Brad actually agreed with this. We were talking, I think this is like the greatest time of my life, because we're serving, doing something that matters, and serving people that are doing things for the kingdom. So,
Yeah, I just love that. And so, Brad, we'll move into that. I know that you in 2016 joined as a chief content officer, and Paul, you and Karen, and I don't know if it was maybe a decade ago, really kind of looked at each other and said you were kind of disenchanted with the things that were coming out of Hollywood and the content. You looked at each other and said, either we're going to just get out of the business, or we're going to start doing things God's way. And I think that was the kind of the pivotal point. And you decided from that point on that anything you would do would be to honor and glorify God. So here you come in, Brad, to help do this. And I was thinking, Paul and Brad, I was really reminded of Colossians 3:23 that says, whatever you do, do it as unto the Lord. And so that's really what you guys are doing now. So tell me about the journey, Brad, about you coming in as the chief content officer, and then we've got a lot of other things to talk about.
Yeah. So I was a client of Paul's long before that. And I don't know when you guys started coming to the church. We go to the same church now, just a non-denominational Protestant church up in northern LA County. And but I was a client at the beginning, I want to say in 08, 09, somewhere in that area.
Yeah.
And so just as a director, just bringing my projects here. And at that time, we were just getting to know each other. We didn't know each other that well, but you're like, hey, you want an office here? I'm like, I can't afford an office. He's like, no, just take an office here. And I look back where you were wanting this content, because I was bringing, Christ-centered projects. And so for about a 3-year period, from about 2013 to 15, we were at the same church, and through just purely providential reasons that we can't really put our finger on,
that's a good story.
God would just have us alone together, like on long car drives. We have these like men's retreats at our church, and like 6 or 7 of us would like carpool together to go to the men's retreat. Right. But like the other 5 guys would cancel, or they can't go till the next day. Yeah. So for, I believe, 3 years in a row,
yeah,
Paul and I were like alone driving for an hour
to man camp.
And during those times, we were just kind of dreaming, not really knowing, and praying, really, not really knowing what we were thinking about. I don't remember anything specific, but we were talking about like, what would it look like to work together in different capacities. But then at a moment in time, I think end of 15, early 16, somewhere in that world, the guy that I was with, working for, that kind of fell through, and he moved. And so I thought, well, I'm kind of a free agent now. And That was at a man camp, at a men's retreat on a Saturday night. This is a Saturday night, like 2016 or so, when I get a text, and I remember telling Paul, I'm like, hey, Paul, I'm a free agent now, or whatever I said. And Paul's like, hey, do you want to go? And I'm thinking, sure, we'll leave. We'll go talk about this. And he's like, no, let's leave the retreat. So I'm like, well, you want to leave? I was an elder at the church at the time. And so he's like, no, let's leave. And I'm like, wait, you want to like leave the camp? Like right now, we're in the middle of the camp. We're in like middle of worship. And he's like, let's leave. So all that say, we drive down, and as we're driving down, I'm navigating us down the hill. And now we're talking, and now we're planning, and now we're scheming. This is Saturday night. I was navigating, and I got us lost, which was a blessing, which was typical my foolishness. God takes the foolish things of the world. So long story short, Lisa, is that in me getting lost, that gave us extra time to talk as we turned around and came back. I started on Tuesday, a couple days later, and the Lord is, the rest is history. So I don't know if that's interesting, but that's what happened.
That's a cool story. I love it. And I love the fact that you'd worked together, right? You'd already kind of seen the work that Paul was doing, and you guys had a chance to do that. We've got a similar situation with somebody that we've worked with. We've known for 12 years, but yeah. So I'm going to leave it at that. I'll be able to announce something soon, hopefully, to you guys. But yeah, because I went through Paul and Brad and looked at some of your recommendations and from different people. And here's what some of the things that
wait, recommendation.
I can't tell you who, right? But no, I didn't see anything but positive things. But projects always came in on time, within budget. You can count on Paul and his team to get the job done. Excellent customer service, ideal creative partner, works hard to understand the nature of the project. Paul and Kappa are a joy to work with. Right combo of good value, deep knowledge. I mean, that's really amazing. So, I think God knew exactly what he was doing. But guys, I've got so much more I want to talk about, but we do need to take a quick break, and we'll be right back with Paul and Brad on the Something Extra podcast.
In business, the tendency is to seek out partners who are bigger, faster, stronger. When it comes to IT, you should be looking for smarter, faster, better. That's just what you'll find with the talented technologists at Technology Partners. Our experts develop custom solutions to tackle your most complex challenges, all to simplify your processes in the smartest, most efficient way possible. The time to be swift and nimble starts now. Go to technologypartners.net/solutions and see what's possible.
So welcome back, everyone, to the Something Extra podcast with my friends, Paul and Brad. So guys, I'd love for you to tell our listeners a little bit. You've got Kappa Studios, Kappa Distribution, and then Kappa Impact, which I think is probably more of a relatively new concept. But tell me about each of those different divisions of the studio.
You want to hold that?
We'll go for it.
Well, I think all these things, over the years, what we've done is we've said, what are the needful things? What are the things that need to be done? We finally have slowed down on making plans and doing things and creating, we're going to do this and this, because I think it becomes an idol, and that moves God down and that up. So that's been a real worry area for me. I've always been concerned about that because I know how I can tend to be. So what happened is that Kappa Studios is a full-service organization that's set up to do post for faith and family films, cut. We came from the secular side. We moved out of all that. Those folks don't call me anymore. It's all over. And all we're doing is here. We paddle our canoe around this lake only. Then the impact and the distribution came because it was a needful thing. We started to see that the distributors that we were doing these projects for, and they'd take them out, and we were recommending them to people, giving them their names and saying weren't really performing. And there's a lot of things that don't work in the distribution world. They just don't. And the way the things are structured, it's designed not to encourage filmmakers and investors to do any more, maybe just one time. And so it's a real bitter pill to swallow when people do stuff. The filmmaker might get benched with the film because they can't get distributed well, and they lose their money. And then they start saying, well, God, did I run ahead of you? Was I not supposed to do this? And then the investors are like, well, you burned me out. We never got our money back. I can't do any more of that. So you got, boom, 2 people on the bench right now. So we felt like if we could create that bridge to help distribute and get projects out and reinvent the whole distribution mechanism, then at that point, maybe they'd be worth doing it. That's not our heartbeat. We're not like, oh, wish we could be in distribution. It's never been anything like that. It's just a needful thing. So that is designed to help filmmakers get their stuff out and make sure that they can make money doing it, and that money comes back, and that the investors start to make money, and then everybody will do it again. And that's been from the beginning. That's my number one thing. I want them to do it again and again and again. And we talk about that often, because if they do it again, now we're getting messages in the culture that make a difference, and we want to point people to what is good and right. That's what we must do. So yeah, so that's that thing there. Impact is something that we realized. So we started out with a thing called the Christian Film Finishing Fund. That's, I think Brad said there, it's sort of been, kind of pulled in now. It's kind of been, drawn in and become part of Impact. But what that was our interest to help the filmmakers. We were doing it on our own, and the problem is it just isn't enough money. Even this week we're talking about, we had 3 projects. Well, do we have a little bit of money here? We'll put a little money there. Well, we can do that. But what we wanted to do was create almost like a shopping site where people can look and see what are the projects going on that they might be interested in. What is it that's resonating in your heart and soul? What do you see? And then ask them, if you want to get behind this, go through NCF, yay, do it. And so that's what we wanted to do. And we're seeing that starting to move forward now, but that's creating opportunities to get projects out that just aren't going anywhere. They're going to be sitting around. And it can be bad decision making, the pandemic, the unions strike. What do you got? Anything can happen. And some of these folks that get caught, they don't have any shock absorber. There's any pad. The money they have is just enough to do it. I mean, it's kind of crazy, but that's what they do. Think of us. Okay, let's go to New York. We're going on a trip, and we only have 1 tank of gas. There's no other money. It's like, well, you can't really make it.
Right.
Go to Arizona, but you're not going to New York. And so I feel like that was a sort of uninformed thing, but some of the projects are really good. So we've had a lot of joy in recutting those, helping the directors rethink how to present those. We spent a lifetime doing this, and we have a lot of really talented people. So, we did The Chosen. What if the guys from The Chosen touch your movie? What if they do your color? What if they use now we got something. Now we're giving the best that we have, and you do that on the Lord, I believe the Lord will use that. So that's kind of how we're doing it.
I absolutely love it, because Paul, you said instead of getting 100 films out, now we may be able to get 500 films out, and it's going to be a force multiplier, right? To get more good content out there and get it out there faster. Yeah. I know you guys, because we kind of talked about this, I know you guys released Unplanned in 2019, and I think my friend Keith Mason actually worked on that. Keith was on the podcast recently. He lives in Franklin, Tennessee, and had worked on Sound of Freedom.
Oh, yeah.
But I'm pretty sure he was one of the, had a part to play in Unplanned. But I know you guys released that. What I really want to talk about now, though, is your latest project, and this is I Can. And I think when Jim and I had initially spoke, he was telling me about this project, and I got really excited. We have a special needs daughter. We have a little girl, Allie, who is, Allie has Down syndrome and just is the most amazing person and has had to overcome a lot, but this young woman, I'm going to read just kind of the executive summary on this. It's based on a true story. Couple's adulterous affair leads to an unexpected pregnancy. They leave their spouses to begin a new life together, but their daughter, Caitlin, is born with a birth defect. While her dad believes that Caitlin's condition is God's punishment for the affair, Caitlin, with only one fully developed arm, defies all odds with an incredible gift for softball. I Can is a story about Caitlin overcoming adversity and her dad eventually finding genuine forgiveness. I'm so excited about this project. I think you guys released it. It was released in theaters on September 22nd. Is that right, guys?
Yeah. Can I clarify one thing?
Yes, you can. Absolutely.
Unplanned is a show we worked on, did all the post-production work for it, but we did not release that one through Kappa Distribution. Just for
gotcha.
For the people watching. Well, go on in, brother. He's going to tell you about I Can. He can about I Can. Go.
Um,
Go for it, Brad.
yeah, it was. So we released it on September 22nd, about 130 some odd theaters. It is the first official release from Kappa Distribution. So as Paul was mentioning, yeah, Kappa Studios, the production and post, and then Kappa Distribution is where obviously to get the films to market, right? So it includes the distribution plan as well as the marketing. And yeah, we had met the director of ICANN on a previous project that we helped him on as well, and there was just something really ministry minded about the people behind this project. And for Paul and I, there's so many different projects out there, films and TV shows. I'm going to say more concerned. I'm certainly more concerned about the people behind the projects because we are so mission driven. And as Paul was talking about, we want to help the filmmakers succeed so that they can keep doing it. Well, if their hearts are not for Christ, if they're not missions minded, if they don't want to impact the culture to advance the kingdom, that's fine. We're not going to judge them, but we don't want to put our hand to that either, right? We want to put our time. It's hard to do this stuff. It's time consuming to do this stuff. It takes so many resources to do this stuff. So if we're going to do that, Lisa, we just want to make sure we're aligning ourselves with very like-minded, mission-first filmmakers. Getting Tyler out of Southern Indiana, we had met him and we just believed in him and what he was doing, so we were thrilled to get involved with it. And this is a charming little true story, just a great little true story called I Can, as you mentioned. Caitlin, the real-life girl that it's based on, she's born with essentially one arm, and just the parent struggle is, where do we process that because of the nature of her conception, as you mentioned. So it's a charming story, and she's got her master's degree in Christian leadership. She just got married in real life. She's 24. The film takes place when she's 18. All that to say, we're just thrilled to align ourselves with this family, the real life family, because we just believe their mission is to point people to Christ. The filmmaker's mission is to point people to Christ. That's what we're all about, so you can see where our missions align.
I love it. I love it. Well, Tyler just got Best Director, I read, from the Christian Film Festival. Best Sound, guys.
That's where it's at. That's where it's at.
That is so awesome. Well, tell me about this. I was so in fact, I've already sent this to a few people. We're very tied into the Pujols, Albert Pujols. If you know number 5 from the Cardinals, he loves Allie. Allie got to throw out last year. It was Albert's last season, right? And she got to throw out the first pitch to Albert, and Albert caught it, and they're amazing people. But I've already shared this with a couple of people, but you've got the I Can experience.
Yeah.
So tell our listeners about that, because there may be other people that want to get involved in that.
Sure. So what we found, Lisa, was that of different crowds that were responding to this film, because she's a softball player, she's an All-American, in real life, she's an All-American softball player, which alone is just a phenomenal thought, right? Talk about 1 in a billion to literally have one arm and be an All-American, legit All-American softball player. So it was the softball community that really embraced this film at such a high level. And to your point, you mentioned we only opened in 100 some odd theaters, so a lot of areas did not have theaters near them. So we were getting calls from like softball moms that were mad at us. They're like, why isn't this opening near us? So we started what we call the I Can experience, where people can watch the film as a team anywhere they want. It can be in their living room. They can do it at a theater if they want. They can do it at a community center, at a church, wherever they want. And so that's the I Can experience. You can go to pretty much I Can movie. You can find it if you're interested, but anyone can find that.
Yeah, the trailer's on it, everything. It's on it. Yeah, this, I tell you that just one cap off on I Can. My favorite part of that movie at the end of it is where the father says, and Brad knows I'm going to talk about it. This is just the kindness of God. He's looking, he says at the end of the movie, he says, when I see my daughter's arm, I used to see shame, punishment, and sorrow. Because, all the enormous, he said, but now I see that God has made her perfect for his purpose, And now by faith, I can walk for it. I can. So it all kind of pulls in the name and all that stuff. But it just that's the message that people that are struggling. It's God is sovereign. Let's talk about the sovereignty of God and keep that in view, even over the things we don't like or understand. That He's sovereign and He uses those. And so that statement was so powerful that God made her perfect.
Mm.
So I just want people that are watching this just to have that in mind, that wherever you're at, whatever's going on, God does not react like I made a mistake. No, everything's planned and He works multidimensionally around through our lives, and He does that to make His name great.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what that movie. That's what that means to me.
Right. That completely resonates with me, Paul, because I say all the time, I would not change one thing about Allie.
Here you go.
She is perfect just the way she is, and the joy that this little girl brings to people.
Yeah.
I say Allie walks in the room and the joy meter goes up for everybody in the room. Seriously, and so I would not change one thing. Wouldn't change one thing. So that really does resonate with me. But go in, if you've got a softball team or if you've got a child, go and do this. They've got a team discussion guide that you can get. They've even got coaching from like Olympic athletes and things like, wonderful, wonderful videos. Well, Paul, I want to move into one other thing. And I kind of talked about this in the sidebar, but I did listen. You did come on to Jim Bechtold's Monday Leadership. Yeah. And you talked about, and I listened in on that because I'm part of CEO Forum. And I remember you talked about the story of Nehemiah, and there were several, lessons that you talked about in there. The wall of Jerusalem, had been destroyed, right? But do you remember how many days it took them to rebuild that wall?
Oh, it was it? I can't remember.
Yeah, I mean, it was really remarkable. 52 days. 52 days to rebuild the wall.
Yeah.
And so all things are possible, right? With God. And God can do miraculous things, and you talked about dependence on God. And really and truly, Nehemiah was just an incredibly ordinary guy. I mean, he was the king's cupbearer. But God did something extraordinary through him. And so, I just love it. But then you also talked about, and I just love this too, and you talked about really when the walls came down, the foundation of the walls was still intact. Yeah. And you liken that to the Word of God.
Right.
And that needs to be our foundation. If we're a faith-filled person, if we want to honor God with all that we do, our businesses, everything that we do, the foundation is the Word of God that we can build on. And so I love that so much. But you'd already kind of alluded to this. I think it was you, Paul, that talked about The Chosen. That is my favorite TV series right now. I cannot wait for the next season to come out.
We're working.
You're working. You guys are the post-production. You're the post-production though on that, right? I mean, you guys are the ones that are editing and doing all of that. And how fun has that been?
This is the longest. It's so cool. Like we've had this whole conversation and it hasn't come up other than in passing.
And I not brought it up.
That's encouraging. So no, in all sincerity, that changed everything in a lot of ways, Lisa, because when we made the pivot, we call it the pivot. From when Paul let's call it the secular Kappa for so long, 25 plus years, and then to say we sent this infamous press release in 2016 saying we wanted to be really clear and say we exist not only for the glory of God, but as you talk about the scripture, we exist for the glory of Jesus Christ as revealed in scripture. Like we just wanted to be super clear here in Los Angeles we didn't want to be cool, we didn't want to be relevant, we didn't try to live in both worlds. We just said, we want to be clear and unapologetic. Choose you this day, who will you serve, right?
Yes.
In God's timing, a few years of just kind of getting our feet under us as sort of the Kappa 2.0 or whatever you call it. Then, longtime friends, some of the producers and director of The Chosen, when they came out here and then when that show blew up, it just became our calling card as a post-production facility.
I am sure that helped very much because, we really didn't talk about that, but I was going to ask you that when you made that decision, I'm sure there were some lean times. I mean, you had to turn business away, right? So I'm sure that helped. But I absolutely love The Chosen. I tell people all the time, go watch it. I promise you, you will just. I just think it's so wonderful. Well, what are you guys most excited about right now?
Well, I am very excited about Amazing Grace, the untold story. We're doing a project about that I think is really going to be great, John. We're reimagining, reworking the whole show, going to come through it from stem to stern. And I'm excited about that and how that's going to come out. I think it'll be a really strong piece. I'm excited about The Shift, which we just finished working on a while back. That'll be coming
That's
out.
Matthew, right?
Yeah,
Matthew.
yeah, he's in there. Yeah,
Matthew did the shift.
she's in there. Liz is in there. Yeah, there. I think December 1st that comes out. Yes, go see that. That's a good movie. I think it's strong, And so there's a lot of things that we're working on that way. Gosh, so many things. What else? I mean, there's a lot of projects that we've been fooling around with. At the right before the strike, I think we had around 17 different projects we were working on, and not all of them go out in the theater and stuff like that. But what we really are interested in, Lisa, is just what Brad said earlier, is getting to know the people, praying with them, dealing with them, loving them up, working with them, and serving them. And that's really, he was saying when he goes, we're not even a business anymore. We're more like a ministry. I mean, we never planned on that. That wasn't,
Right.
I was telling somebody the other day, I guess I'm a bad businessman, but I never, that wasn't, it's no longer the point of emphasis because it was becoming an idol and self-sufficiency and all of that stuff. And as a business operator and owner, payroll is ever before you. It's always there. And the costs and all the stuff and the shenanigans, all the things that go on. So I was just I was kind of embracing those and making those a reality. And what I needed to do is start trusting God on that. So that's how we've been going. But now it's just, we've kind of moved over and it's much, much better. Nothing's perfect. We live in a fallen world, but I got to tell you, we finally have a target and we know where to shoot.
Yeah. Well, I think you're storing up treasure in heaven, Paul. That's what you're doing with what you're doing today. And I just, as I hear you talk, I'm just thinking it's incredible what God can do with a surrendered life.
Yeah.
And a step of obedience from you guys, and look at what God's done. So I have to ask you, though, this is called Something Extra. I would love to hear from each of you. What do you believe is the something extra that every leader needs?
You want to lead off on that? Speaking of leader.
Something extra that every leader. See, you did so much homework on us, and you were like awesome, and you were so prepared. I learned about us by what you told us about us and our background and stuff. That was awesome. You stayed prepared. I should have, had I been prepared. So I don't know, something.
If you can't,
I gotta go for it. I'll do it. But
go on ahead. If you got something, go.
No, come on. I want to hear from you.
No, I'm gonna say I will.
Okay. So for me, the extra is not even the extra. It's the foundation. It is all about Scripture. It is all about the Lord. It is all about everything. That's all we have. To me, everything is one day, 1 hour at a time. Don't overthink the room. It is, can we live truly by faith, by the things we profess to be true within the Scriptures? So for me, the something extra is not even the extra. It is the everything. It is the foundational living of just the right understanding to read, hear, study, memorize, and meditate on the Scriptures, pray through the Scriptures, live the Scriptures, digest the Scriptures, just constant communion with God, and let that inform everything.
Yes.
Everything. And with this, the problem that we've seen, I won't say problem, because I do it too. Well, the fact that I do it means it's a problem. But what we notice a lot in our space, Lisa, is people will say, like, I'm like, why do you want to do your movie? That's a common question. Or I'll say, like, what is success to you, right? I'm always asking them, what are you trying to accomplish? And they'll say, well, I just want to tell people about Jesus, and I just want my investors to get paid back. Okay? I just want to tell people about Jesus, and I just want to make enough money so I can do another film. I want to tell people about Jesus. It's always, I want to just glorify God, and we're trying to live, Lisa, in a way that says we want to glorify God, period.
Cut. Yeah.
If everybody makes money, may the Lord's name be praised. If people make $1 billion, may the Lord's name be praised. So I guess a long answer. I was trying to wait for something profound to come out. I never quite did. So take what I said about living in the scriptures, Lisa, but it's like everything is born out of scripture. And may there be, it says at the end of 1 John, little children, guard yourselves from idols. May we focus on the simplicity and purity of devotion to Christ through his word.
It's beautiful.
All right.
Paul,
Okay.
how about you?
So something extra.
And fries. Maybe extra fries.
Extra fries. A side of fries.
Okay, side of fries. Okay.
Yeah, no, I think to me the something extras are learning how to say you're sorry and asking to forgive you. And that's something that came hard for me because I was very and still struggle with pride and arrogance, and so I had that dimension. So it's learning how to humble yourself. And our good Pastor Steve, who just passed away here recently, he used to talk about first comes humility, then comes honor. And the culture wants it the other way around. Leaders want it the other way around. Honor me.
Right.
Oh, I'm humble. No, the other way around. So it's learning those things and putting those in order and in motion. And I think the other thing is radical dependence, like Brad was touching on. We are devotees of George Mueller. We love reading about him, talking about him. I've read his books many times. And that is a life that's absolutely radically dependent. Him and his wife, I mean, even their first church assignment, they went to the church and they refused to take any money. They said, well, let's just collect and that's for you. No. He said, no. Everything that we have, God's going to give us. So can we do that? Are we able to dig down into that and say, okay, when it's time for payroll or whatever the expenditures, all this stuff's going on. There's so many things that are pulling us. I think that's the goal, is live radically dependent. Find that.
Radically dependent.
Yes. Only God can do that.
I got an idea for you guys. I think you guys need to do a movie about the story of George Mueller.
Say that, yeah.
It's in the oven here. We're
trying. We're trying.
All right. That's awesome. I love it.
If you're running to anybody who wants to get behind us on that, that one's going to take some juice. But that's one we'd like to see done. We have some interesting. I can tell you more about that later.
But you know what? I'll just say it's funny you mentioned that, Lisa, because the reason what animates me, you asked previous question. You said what are you excited about? I wasn't even thinking about the specific projects per se, so I'm glad Paul answered that question because we should talk about our projects. But even something like the George Mueller project, what excites me about it is I want to do the project the way he would have done the project.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean?
There's your story right there.
Like, I want to, our impression of him is like that he would live radically dependent, trusting God every step of the way, not getting stressed about it, not worrying about, like, you can't do a project about a guy who's radically dependent on God and then fight over how we're going to make the budget. Right. You see what I'm saying? Yeah. It's kind of, it's paradoxical. So it's like, what excites me is let's push into living more into that radical dependency to make a movie about a guy who is radically dependent.
Yeah, that's it. We're on an adventure.
Beautiful.
That's what we're doing with that. And
I love it, guys. Well, hey, I could just talk to you guys all day, but but I don't know that our listeners will listen all day, so we probably should wrap this up. This was so much fun. Thank you guys so much for making the time to be on the show today.
That's great.
God bless you, Lisa. Thanks so much.
Thank you for listening to today's show. Something Extra with Lisa Nichols is a Technology Partners production. Copyright Technology Partners, Inc., 2019. For show notes or to reach Lisa, visit tpi.co/podcast. Don't forget to leave a review on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, or wherever you listen.